Welcome back to Football Fun Dates and to this episode of Fantasy Premier League. Game week 5, and it's not been an easy one. After the international break, we've had a fair share of injuries, some COVID isolations, and a big one right before we shot this episode, right? Kevin De Bruyne is out for game week 5 at least. Pep Guardiola has confirmed that. We will be covering that later in this episode. Kern, let's start off straight. What are we going to do in terms of our defense? Ben Chilwell, who was a doubt himself, is luckily fit, and he's fit in your wildcard team pick, right? But apart from Chilwell, who are the players you're looking at in your defense who should be a must-have?
So yeah, I'm going to just start with Chilwell. I know, they play Arsenal, not probably the best play, especially another big news coming out of the injuries that Eduardo Mendy, Lampard has confirmed, is not going to be fit for this game. So whether Kepa steps in, I guess he will. Slightly scary for clean sheet points, but I do think Chilwell in the long run will give attacking returns. So that's a good pick. I think one of the picks, like if you have Sheffield United defenders, if you somehow still have them, it's a great week to hold on to them because they're playing Fulham and I think this is a great time for Sheffield to finally get a win with the clean sheet. They've lost all their games so far. So Sheffield, of course, have a couple of their own injury concerns. So I think George Baldock is looking like the pick. He sort of makes those overlapping runs as well, the inverted centre backs or whatever you want to call them. So I think he is the pick for Sheffield United defenders. But basically, anyone who you have who's fit should be good. I won't really go out of my way to bring anyone in this week, right? Especially not from Sheffield United. That's sort of looking iffy so far. The other game that I'm looking at is West Brom versus Burnley. It could easily be a 0-0. Both teams not looking that great going up front. Burnley specifically, you could be looking at the likes of Tarkowski, who have got out recently, but looking good in the air. West Brom, I think, have conceded the most shots from the air, from set pieces this season so far. So he could be a big one for Burnley. So I think Tarkowski could be a good pick this week. And those are sort of the defenders I'm looking at because, as we know, clean sheets aren't really guaranteed so far. But if I'm looking at clean sheets, those might be the only ones that I guess I'll pick out.
Yeah, and we ideally don't like wasting transfers on defenders, especially if you're not on a wild card, right? Look, I've had the likes of Charlie Taylor, 4.5 in my team. I have just kept him like a set and forget kind of 4.5 defender, treat him that way. You mentioned Tarkowski, someone took out. They do play West Brom, like you said, but then they have Tottenham, Chelsea, not the best fixtures in the next three. So it's okay if you don't bring the likes of Nick Pope in as well, right? And Burnley just haven't shown enough, right? Where you could blindly back them. They have been troubled by injuries to their centre backs as well. They pretty much started the season without a fit centre back. So, Burnley is not that team we're used to seeing with those by default clean sheets, right, Kern, where no matter what you figured, Burnley would get you that clean sheet at one team.
Yeah, if I'm just looking into stats, Annie, so Burnley obviously are going up now in terms of the XG conceded. So they are starting to look better. So I think in another couple of game weeks, you might look at a place again where Burnley defenders are being brought in when, the fixtures sort of ease out and you see a patch of green. And on the other side of it, I just wanted to give a shout out to Leeds United. While we're not looking at defensive clean sheets yet, I'm sure that will normalize and we will look at it soon. Dallas, I think, is a great option to bring in. I might bring him in because another update from the press conferences was that Lamptey's still, he says he's fit and this and that, but he's still a 75%. He still has that yellow mark. So I might bring in Dallas for Lamptey because on expected points per million in the entire game, Dallas is standing out. So, if you want attacking returns, if you're looking to go that explosive defender rather than a defensive defender, Dallas at Leeds United might be one to look at for his attacking potential.
Okay, so you did mention Leeds United, Kern, and yes, they are playing Wolves though, and we've discussed Wolves I think in length in both our episodes. So I'll do a quick recap. If you have the likes of Says in your team, keep them for now. Wolves do tend to get those clean sheets, right? Patricio is someone we look at as long-term keeper as well. When it comes to the attacking bit, though, Jimenez still is leaving a lot of managers to be desired, right? And we've covered that in our Ings versus Jimenez debate. And Ings wins just about now because even when a Chelsea tomorrow could win a game 3-1, you bet on Ings to at least get that one goal, right, Kern? Moving on to the Merseyside Derby. We're talking about attacking returns. We're talking about keepers. Sorry, we're talking about defenders, right? What about Robertson and Trent, Kern? And what about the likes of international minutes with the likes of James Rodriguez, who's owned by almost 40% managers now, and Calvert Lewin by about 50%? Where do you see all of that figuring in?
So while we're on defense, I'm going to just sort of look at Trent and Robbo. Obviously, big questions have to be because they were like sort of must-haves in your FPL team, right? If I had to pick between the two right now, I would pick Robbo. I know Trent is on set pieces, and we've said before that sort of increases his appeal. I know in the long run, it they will come back into team, but just right now, I don't have him. I'm not looking to bring them because of the value I see in a like of Chilwell. If I'm not getting my clean sheets yet, Chilwell can give me the attacking returns, and he did in his first appearance for Chelsea, which was the last appearance that he made before international break. Right, so that's the only way I'm seeing it. But obviously, going into a game week without Trent Alexander-Arnold is scary. So if you have these players, it's great. I think you should sort of stick with them in the long run. You will need them in your team, so no point wasting your transfers on them. I'd say stick with Trent and Robinson because on any given week they can give you 15 points, right? Just there, and that's the time when it'll hurt you. So
Yeah,
one of the two, but Robertson because he's 0.5 cheaper, he's looked good going up front. So if you want
yep.
to bring one in, that just looks better because of his 0.5 that you can invest as well.
Yep, Kern, and that's something we mentioned. And I told you if I was doing a wild card back in game week 4, if the worst happened, Robertson for me was a by default coming in because I've seen Trent being a little average and lackluster since the start of the season. Not just now, actually, since the start of the season post lockdown, right? Towards the end of last season, that was. And Liverpool have good fixtures after everything. They have Sheffield home, West Ham home, City away comes in, but then they have Leicester home, Brighton away, Wolves home, Fulham away. They're not really bad fixtures to have to at least expect the likes of Trent and Robertson to get some points. Yeah, Kern, so fair enough. Now let's move on to the likes of James Rodriguez, Mo Salah, Mane. Um, Alan and Doucouré are fit. That means Everton's traditional midfield is what we've seen them starting with, where they've got their amazing results, right? Unbeaten so far. Do you see James Rodriguez playing the game? I know it'll be his first Merseyside Derby, but he played 2 international games, the last one being into Thursday early morning. This is early Saturday kickoff. Little worrying, right? If you are James Rodriguez, one of which almost 40% managers are.
I think he'll play. There's no way that with Everton on such a run, with James in such form, he puts up his hand. He's like, I'm playing, no question. I don't think they have any problems with no Champions League midweek. I think you see players play Thursday, Sunday, right? This is Wednesday, Saturday. I don't see why it won't happen. It's a Merseyside derby of all games. That if it's any other game, maybe he rests him, brings him on second half if needed. I see James Rodriguez starting this game because of the magnitude of this game and because of the run that Everton have been on. And obviously, more about that can be seen in our Merseyside derby special preview. So, hey guys, click over that. It's live, so you can watch that. But that's there, and I think looking at the other side of it, again, big news. Mane has trained all week. Uh, Klopp has confirmed that him and Thiago have both been in Melbourne for the last 5-6 days. They've been training properly. So I think that is huge for Liverpool with Mane and Salah both being available. If I had to pick between the two, for me it would be Salah. It's just that he sort of proves week in week out. He gives again, whenever we say this, Mane goes on and gets those big performances and makes us chew our words. But I just think Salah is the safest one, especially with penalty duties as well and all of that. Salah over Mane for me.
But there is a case, and I know it's not something we've both said ourselves not the ideal situation, but we're looking at Kevin De Bruyne out now, right? And that's where I'm going to bring this in, and then we can move on to the next big fixture as well while talking about the midfielders. Kevin De Bruyne is out for this game week. Raheem Sterling should be fit. He should be. But is there still a case, Khan? I know you said no, we shouldn't do it. But is there still a case where looking at the importance of this fixture, it might not be the worst idea to get in Mane? He's only owned by 6.2% managers. A double up. Simple yes, no.
Could be. Yeah. If you're looking for a 1 week change to just bring in a placeholder for De Bruyne, why not, man? Why not double up on them? They could get a few. I see options elsewhere, but if you're feeling that, then yeah, why not?
Yeah, KDB at 11.6, Mane at 11.9, the point 3, if you do have it, might worth be considering the punt. I have Sterling in my team, and now I can move on to, Arsenal versus Man City while we're talking about it, right? Sterling does have a yellow mark against his name still. Pep did say most of the other players are fit, but, it's Pep Guardiola. So I'm talking about this fixture, Kern, and, the surprising part is that I'm looking at Arsenal right now. And surprise, surprise, we still have a small doubt about Aubameyang as well. So you have Aubameyang at 11.9 doubtful, take 75% chance of playing. Sterling 75% chance of playing. KDB out. Technically, your heavy hitters are doubtful, right? What do you do then in terms of a midfield for this game? Would you risk drafting in a Salah or a Mane if you don't have either of them, or would you look elsewhere?
So if you don't have Salah or Mane, you need to have at least one of them. In general FPL rule in current time, you need to have at least one of them. It's the same with KDB, right? It's so hard to go without him. But now that there's no KDB, Aguero might be back. Another big thing from the press conference that Aguero's finally played a few minutes. He won't start by all likelihood after a player of his age is out for so long with such a serious injury. You ease them back in. So I don't see him starting yet. But I do think that having no KDB, no Aguero starting, Sterling not fully fit, no Jesus, I think it might finally sort of dent City's attacking threat, at least with this week against Arsenal, who have looked defensively stronger against under Arteta, who now have Partey, who's come in to sort of help with sitting in front of the defenders and making things stronger, right? So just because of all of those things, I am now finally thinking whether it is time to look outside of City. If De Bruyne is not available, yes, Sterling is a great option. Mahrez is a great option, uh, much cheaper, lower owned. But I have personally gone for Bruno Fernandes. Uh, I think Ole's press conference looked good. He is saying that he needs a performance, a big reaction from his players. He wants them to go out and dominate the game. And if it's coming through anyone with Martial out, it's going to be through Bruno. So I think Bruno is my replacement for De Bruyne.
And the other thing with Man City, looking at, the likes of Mahrez and Foden, with Bernardo Silva fit and doing well for Portugal, Ferran Torres fit, you just never know, right? Even if Sterling is fit, he's again, that tinkering, that doubt starts creeping in, right? And with the way the season has gone, is an anomaly for a lot of managers. I don't think it's worth betting that risk anymore on that Pep rotation, right? But if you do have Sterling like I do, I think I will be keeping him in my team unless I have a monumental panic attack half an hour before deadline. And if I have to move away from there, right, Kern, and we look at outside of the top players like we spoke about Salah and Mane, Son is someone we've covered. Son, if you still don't have Son, then Son has to be in your team for sure. If you for KDB, I think that Son would come in maybe over Salah. I don't know. That's where the debate is. I think you should have Salah in your team, but you know what? It's going to be a tough one. But yeah, Son is someone you should look at. If not that, Kern, there are cheap midfielders out there who have decent fixtures, and I'm going to talk about Zaha and Grealish. Villa and Crystal Palace both have good fixtures coming up. They're both about at 7.1, 7.2. Or Kern, like we should leave both these sides away. And we spoke about this team in particular in our last episode for your wildcard. The ownership of the Chelsea midfield is just too tempting to ignore with all of them fit. But you know what? Let's start off with Villa Grealish.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start off with, as you said, Grealish, right? He's obviously looks good. He's up against a Leicester side, which has been confirmed in press conference now that do look sort of weak in defense in terms of injuries. Couple of players might not be available. And Villa are obviously on a high after putting 7 past Liverpool, right? So they will come in with confidence knowing that they can score. I'm not that convinced by Grealish yet, only because he's been overperforming on his numbers quite a bit. Everyone is right now, but Grealish is, I think he's outperformed by more than 10 points on what is expected at this stage, after only 4 games, right? Or 3 games rather for Villa. So I think it's a big one to sort of ignore. So I'm not that convinced yet. Zaha, obviously, Palace in general, just generally, go on long patches of not performing. So I'm very wary of getting in someone like a Zaha. Whereas there's so much value around those prices, slightly higher, right? As you said, Chelsea. Pulisic is someone who I am hoping starts this week. He's only at 3.3% ownership. Uh, was fantastic for Chelsea, right? Was the only source of goals for them post lockdown. Primary source rather for goals. Obviously, Giroud was doing the scoring, but the only person who looked lively on pitch for them was Pulisic, up against a Southampton team that love playing this high line and they're sticking with that high line. Pulisic would love to exploit that, and I think he can get that start. I know I'm gambling a bit with him getting that start or not, but I think Pulisic is a good pick for me this week.
Yeah, and also mentioned to Hakim Ziyech, he is one of those playmakers that Ajax loved the way he played for them. I think if he's fit at 7.9 again, that zero point 0.4 cheaper, just 0.1 above James Rodriguez, right? Could be a good differential there as well to take him in. But yeah, with the way James Rodriguez is going, I would not recommend benching him, not just taking him out, not just yet, right? So, Kern, I think that kind of wraps up our midfield, right? You spoke about Bruno Fernandes as well, and a possibility of the only United asset who could get you something, even if they don't end up winning a game. Let's
Yeah,
now
I'm just
take.
gonna Annie,
Go for it. Yeah.
I'm just gonna give one shout out to a budget sort of option, right? And I'm looking at actually not a budget option as such. I'm looking at sort of Marcus Rashford for this week. I think looks good as well because he's a midfielder, but he's gonna play centre forward this game for United. I don't see Gallo starting. I think in the absence of Martial, Rashford is going to be United's main output. And how we saw last season that you have a Manchester United forward as playing as a midfielder, getting those extra points for you. He's at a good price point as well. I think Rashford might be a good pick this week. And if you're looking at a cheap option, then Podence, I think, is another one to look at for attacking returns this week for people looking good.
All right, fair enough. We'll move on to the forward line very quickly before we go on to our differential picks and captain picks. Kern, now we spoke about Chelsea. So I'm going to, and we've covered Ings and Jimenez extensively in our last two episodes for the wildcard. What about Timo Werner? The ones who have him, I think should keep them for one more week. Now, does it make sense take him out? Because you've got that creativity behind him finally showing up fit, along with Chilwell, who's fit. It's a big plus, right? We're finally going to see Chelsea playing the way people thought they will play. But if you don't have Werner, specifically for those managers, 9.3, who do you get in? Do you take in that hit from, let's say, moving on a Liverpool defender to a Harry Kane? Or would you still tell them, what, maybe get in Werner right now? Could be good getting on the bandwagon and start scoring from this game.
Yeah, I mean, see, if you, as you said, if you had Werner, you stick with him because you suffered through his price drop that he's got this week and the weeks before that. So you stick with him. It actually might be interesting to bring him in, Annie. That's actually a good point that he's sort of at a lower price point, available at a lower price point now. So if you are looking to bring him in, he will get the supply now, starting with Ziyech and Pulisic and all these people fit. Ziyech obviously won't start the game as Lampard is confirmed. They'll manage his minutes. So that will be a big caveat here. I will instead, if you do have the money to bring in Kane hands down over Werner right now. He's in red hot form. He's in the middle of everything that Spurs are doing. Bale is going to get a few minutes as well as confirmed by Mourinho. So Bale and Son and Kane are going to be a lethal attacking trio, right? If Bale can perform like everyone knows he can. So Kane is a must for me in that sense, if you can bring him in. If not, then I think Jimenez is a pick for me this week. Leeds United have conceded the most number of shots in the box so far this season. Everyone knows Jimenez doesn't need too many of those to convert. He's clinical. So I think Jimenez is a striker pick for me to look at this week.
Kern, it's a little surprising because we spoke about the Ings versus Jimenez debate, right? And we'll pick it up again right now. You picked Ings earlier in your wildcard team. So you're basically saying Ings for the long term, but pick for this week Jimenez, right? Simple as that.
Yeah.
Just to clarify that so that there's no confusion with the last episodes. Okay. Yep. Now DCL is pretty much 50% owned almost by 49.2% managers, right? So let's not talk about DCL. We know he's raring to go in the Merseyside Derby and could definitely be, it could be a goal fest, could be a 2-2. So you will see a DCL there. We've discovered Bruce. We've spoken of Brewster as well. 4.5 will be a starter for Sheffield United. Record signing, worth getting him to your team if you're wildcarding now. But let's look at an option we're not considering for a very good reason, and we'll round off this topic about Leicester City as well. Vardy definitely going to get more penalties this season. That's no doubt about it. But at 10.0, I would still risk taking a Werner for my side, not because of the point 0.7. I just see Werner getting in more from the creative outlets that he has around him than Vardy does.
Yeah, I think Vardy has, you rightly said the penalty aspect of it. I think that's the only appealing aspect for him right now, because if you look at all the other stats around him, it's not that he's getting too many shots in the box. He's not doing much. He's never needed that, but even by his own standard, it's not that much, right? It's not that high. Uh, Plus, he has a calf strain going into this week. I think he'll sort of shake it off and play, primarily because Leicester don't really have too many other options, right? I think he'll sort of play through that. But yeah, I think there's good value available elsewhere. Werner slightly cheaper. If you have the extra money, then Kane up slightly ahead of him. So I think you can sort of go without looking at Vardy.
Okay, Kern, now let's move on to our differentials. I think we've wrapped up all of that beautifully. Who is your differential for this game week?
My differential this week, as I said earlier, is Pulisic. Under 5% ownership. I think he will start. I think we've all expected Chelsea to score goals. They have been scoring goals. I think Pulisic is going to be in the thick of it. Pulisic is my differential pick for this week.
Fair enough, Kern. I'm looking at the number of injuries in midfield, especially, right? Three big heavy hitters, one definitely out. Aubameyang and Sterling should start, but you just never know with the way the season is going, right? Managers might not want to risk the players after one more international break and another one coming up, 3 weeks' time. So I'm thinking if I have to move things around for 1 week, I don't want to maybe take a big hit or a big guess, right? I want to get the fluidity of getting someone back in. So I'm thinking the likes of a Bukayo Saka. 5.3 in the bank. He's owned by about 3.3. I think it's pretty much around the same as Pulisic's ownership. And I think he did score in the last game. So he does have it in him to get in those assists and those goals. I do see him actually starting this game. I'd be surprised maybe if he doesn't. He has played 2 out of the 4 games, so he has missed an alternate game here and there. But I think if I'm looking at this Man City side, if they're a little bit weakened, I'm looking at the Arsenal side with Arteta's formation twist and maybe Pepe playing instead of Willian, or maybe just they start Bukayo Saka on the left, Oba up top, and no Lacazette. So I think Saka could be a good differential pick.
Yeah, I mean, if Aubameyang was fit, like 100% fit, he would have been one of a sort of a no-brainer choice for this game, right? Especially seeing what the tatters that City's defense is in. But if you are looking at, so I think, yeah, Saka is an interesting option. And hey, dude, you're currently top 15,000 in the world. So whatever Annie says, guys, if he's saying Saka is the man with the golden touch right now, go with Saka.
I look, I am not saying that for sure because COVID is so weird and the international break has been so weird, right? You might end up seeing a fully fit side with Lacazette and himself starting tomorrow and Saka not even being on the bench. But because you mentioned that, and that's interesting to know that there are so many things going on. My second differential pick here again, and I don't want to be laughed at because he's a player I brought up before as well, is Phil Foden again. I'm still looking at the City side. I'm seeing no KDB in. I'm looking at Phil Foden. Yes, he's owned by about 5% now, 7% ownership, but I'm at 6.6. I don't know, man, Kern. Why not? Why not? Because
I mean, if you're looking at a Saka to get some attacking return somewhere, Foden could easily be that person for City.
City, exactly. That's my logic and reasoning right there.
Yeah, I think at those price points, it's a very decent gamble to make. And if we are looking at slightly outside the 5% with a cheating pick, I'm going to make one as well. Neil Maupay. I think if people have him in their team, they must keep him. I was actually trying to figure out how I could bring him in. Didn't sort of work out, but I think he's going to be a great option. His stats have been great. Brighton will look great going up as well. They're up against Crystal Palace, who have been strong at home, but I think could easily concede to this Brighton side. And let's not forget, if you have Maupay in your team, then they're playing West Brom next, who are sort of the whipping boys, if you want to call them so far this season. So if you have Maupay in your team, keep him, and he might be a great differential, 5.5% ownership.
Yeah, fair enough, Kurt. Now let's move on to our captain picks. For me, it was kind of easy. I thought we'd have Son as my captain, for this game week. Yes, West Ham have actually played well in the last couple of games, so it's not going to be as easy for him and Kane to score in that one. But I feel if Kane again gets going in this game, Son has to be the mastermind behind it, right? So I think my captain pick for this game week will be Son. If if not Son, then I think my backup captain pick will definitely still be um, Mo Salah.
I don't have Harry Kane in my team, but if I did, I would be captaining him. I think this game against West Ham, I think is prime for him. So if you have Harry Kane, I'd say captain Harry Kane. I don't, so I'm going to be torn between Son and Salah. I'm just sort of leaning towards Salah right now, just because I have a gut feeling that Kane is going to be the one who's getting the points for Spurs this week. I don't know why. Not like my gut has worked so far this season, but I don't know. I just feel that that's going to be the pick. It's going to be a last second call, but I think it's between those three players essentially.
Okay, so those were our must-have players for this game week, and our differential picks and our captains. We've cheated a bit on our differential picks, but it seems like it's one of those. It's an anomaly of a season, right? We thought we'd spice it up a bit. So thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Don't forget to hit like on our video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, turn on the notifications so you know when our new videos are out. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We're happy to get back to you on team suggestions on our YouTube comments or on our social media handles. Also, don't forget that we do have a mini league going on, and for the ones who are already part of that, we hope you're going to have a good game week to come. I'm currently on top of that game week, but I'm happy to be on top of it by the end of the year as well. So thank you so much guys for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode.
Best of luck, everyone.